All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott from Jeff Teaches Programming, and I have to start this lecture, so this is all on me. But I broke one of the cardinal rules of programming, and that is I did not make a copy of everything that I had. Somehow I screwed up the second iteration of this program. So I went back and I rewrote it. And when I rewrote it, as you often do when you rewrite, I changed it around a little bit. So you can see I've added a return button that'll be used in version 3. I used modularization to break each button's code into functions, and I added menu options. So let's first start by just taking a quick look at it. There it is. Now what I'm going to do in the next iteration, because that one's screwed up as well, all right, and that is I'm going to come in and I'm going to make this work. All right, I'm also going to start adding a class library that I'm going to be able to use. Okay, so if you heard class library before, that was just me screwing up. And hopefully now everything is going to be working soon. This works. Just to show you, if I run it, there it is, centered on the screen. If I put nothing in for height text box empty. If I put in something alphanumeric, you must enter a number. If I put in something out of range, it tells you what the range is. And if I do the same kind of thing for the weight, again, nothing in there, non-numeric, out of range, and then finally, if I do put in something that's within range, all right, I'll let my clock stop. So if I put in something within range, that works. All right, I can clear from here, just like I can calculate from here. All right, return, again, will be implemented in the next iteration. And exit will allow me to exit. Minimize this. So let's take a quick look at what I did. And when I say quick look, I'm hoping it will be quick. What I'm going to do when I finish this is I'm going to copy this over to iteration 3 and add the other form like I had before. And hopefully I can get that up and working fairly quickly and then get into iteration 4. So let's take a look. The exit hasn't changed. It's exit program or not. And I call that both from my button and from the exit menu. Second, return, which just says implemented next iteration, which is just a simple message box. And again, I'm calling it from in there. Third, the clear button, which is clear all fields, which is right here. And again, I'm also implementing that through the menu. All right, so let's talk about the one that really did change, and that's calculate. If you look in here, I've now got a thing called run the program. And it's really not very big. It's right here. All right, so what are we doing? Well, we're declaring our double for our BMI, and that's going to be the calculated body mass index, and a string for the BMI status. So that string is going to be either underweight, overweight, optimal weight, or obese. All right. Then, just to break it up and just to show you a little bit of what you can do, I created a Boolean. Remember, a Boolean variable is a true-false. So I called it is success. And I validate height. We're going to look at that in a minute. If that worked, in other words, if it returned true, then I validate the weight. If it did not return true, that meant there was a problem with the height. So I just clear out whatever was in the height, set the focus, and get out. All right. If I try to do the weight and it works, then I can calculate and display the BMI because I've got a valid height and a valid weight. All right. And I can do the BMI status as well. Now that I look at that, I can even make this a little bigger, or better. Yeah, no, that's fine the way it is. If it didn't work, then there was a problem with the weight. So I clear it out, I set the focus, and I return. All right, let's add a couple comments in here so you can, tell exactly what's happening. So call function to validate the height. If validate height, returns success. Call validate weight function. If not, there was a height error. So clear height text box, set the focus to height text box, and return. Hopefully that's pretty obvious then. So I can take this if not, I guess, put it here. All right, so if validate height returns success, call validate weight. If it doesn't, there was a height error, so clear the height text box, set the focus to the height text box, and return. So let's look at the height text box. This is the same stuff we've been working with. All right, so I set height string equal to the height string, whatever we put into the text box. If that was empty, we put a message box in that says the height text box was empty. We set the focus and we return. We really don't even have to set the focus anymore because we're already setting it back when we return. All right. So now if we get down to here, there was something in the height text box. So check for non-numeric height. If the check fails, that means we put in something in there that wasn't numeric. So again, we can get rid of these two things because we're doing them already, and we return false. All right? So here, if we get down to here, there was a number in the height text box. So we do the range check. If it didn't work, again, you can see how I made it a little nicer by, instead of setting it 2 or 3 times, just setting it once. All right. Now, can I even change this? Well, the answer is yes, I could, but I'm going to leave the rest of it the way it is. If we get down to here, all checks passed. There was something in there. Whatever was in there was a number, and whatever was in there was between 12 and 96. All right. Now, I like to, when I can, since this is fairly similar to one another, all right, since these are fairly similar to one another in here, I'm going to go and copy these comments down to the weight because it's the same thing. All right. So we've got that one done. So we'll do the same exact thing for the weight. All right. So let's grab this comment. And let's go down into here for our weight. Now we will have to change this. There was something in the weight text box. So check for a non-numeric weight inputted. All right. So again, the conversion failed. So I'm cutting down my comments too in doing this. So the conversion failed. There was a non-numeric value. We display this, error message, and return. We don't have to clear that anymore because we're doing it in just one spot. So here again, we'll display the error message and return. I'm just cleaning this thing up a little bit. All right. So there was something in there. If it fails, we display the error message in return. We'll do the same exact thing for the weight. All right, so we'll display an error message in return. And finally, with our range, we'll display an error message and return. So I've cleaned this up quite a bit. We don't need these either. All right, so let's go through both those routines again. Height string is whatever we put into the text box. Height is going to be the parsed height string. All right, so we check for an empty height. So there was nothing in the text box. If that's the case, we show an error message and return. Okay? Otherwise, there was something in the height text box, so we check to see if it was numeric or not. If the int try parse fails, it was not numeric. So the conversion failed. All right. There was non-numeric input. We display an error message and we return. Otherwise, there was a number in there, so we do our range check. Was the number we put in between 12 and 96? If it was not, we display an error message and return. If we get down to the bottom, all checks passed, meaning, oops, one, there was something in height text box. 2, the value in height text box was an int. 3, the int in height text box is within range. Okay? So, and I'm not going to even say clean this up a little more, but what I can do in here, I like to provide as much documentation as I can. So here we're not just returning, we'll return false. Here we're not just returning, we'll return false. And here we're not just returning, we're returning false. And if none of those checks were true, now we return true. There you go. I'm going to grab this so I can use the same thing for my weight one. So again, check for empty weight. Put in error message, return false. All right. We get down to here, check for non-numeric. If it fails, again, we will return false. All right, the range check, if that fails, we will return false. Finally, again, if we get down to here, all checks pass. There was something in the weight text box. The value in the weight text box was an int, and the int in the weight text box was within range. So we return true. All right. And that's basically an explanation of everything that went on up to here. So if height and weight both return true, remember, if height didn't return true, we're going to clear out whatever was in there, set the focus, and return. If weight, we had a problem, we're going to clear it out, set the focus, and return. But if height and weight both worked, we're going to set the BMI, or basically calculate the BMI now, and then calculate and display the status. We don't have to do any more checking. Everything that's in there is valid. All right. So I've got here BMI is going to be equal to calculate and display BMI, and BMI status is going to be equal to calculate and display BMI status. So when we get done, we'll be able to display the BMI and display the status. Okay? For the BMI, it's pretty simple. It's right here. We don't have to check this anymore. We can just parse height into an integer, parse weight into an integer, and then run the formula. All right, and for calculating and displaying the status, it's the same exact check. I just copied it into its own routine. So let's run it one more time and make sure everything works and my comments didn't screw anything up. So with nothing, no input, non-numeric input, out of range input, no input for weight, non-numeric input for weight, out of range input for weight, and it works. We can clear, return we'll be putting in later, and then we will be able, and we can exit. So I'm sorry, I put this in there, but I wanted you to know. All right, I've got a couple of these videos that I've done and I have produced, but I haven't put out there on the internet yet. I'm going to put that out in just a moment. When I do get back, what I'm going to do is two things. First, I'm going to take everything that was in this iteration, which is our second iteration BMI GUI, and I've got to check third iteration BMI GUI because I think it's screwed up. All right, in fact, I'm not sure if it is or not, but I'm going to check, and if it is, I'll redo it. And if it's not, I'm just going to go on from there. All right, and then ideally, what we'll be able to do next is what I'd started to do before I had to so rudely interrupt myself, and that is I'm going to go back in and I'm going to change the library files so they will be able to be used by both the console version of this program, the latest console version, and the latest GUI version of the program. So I'll see you with that shortly.